Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today I'll be showing you how I made my Springtrap suit. Just a little preface, this took me about 70 hours and surprisingly it only cost me around $150 in materials, which includes glue sticks, fabric, foam, popsicle sticks, elastic, markers, and all of the electronic parts. Also, I forgot to record a lot of the body, so this video is pretty much just the head. But without further ado, let's get right into it. For this first part here, I first measured the foam and made sure it was fit to my head, then marked equal sized triangles so I could cut it out and fold it together into the proper shape. From there, I used a heat gun to get the proper shape before gluing it together, before cutting out an area for the snout. For this next part, I moved to my desk because my floor was very messy. So for the snout, I take a rectangular piece of foam, I cut the corners, and I heat shape it to the right size before gluing it on the front. Next, I use a ruler to properly measure the distance between the eyes. Now, I start cutting, which was a very, very painstaking process because my knife was so dull, I could barely even cut through the foam. I had to use it like a saw. This next part, I made the nose, which is just a little circle of foam, and I used a heat gun to shape it. This took me 3 attempts to get right, but I did end up getting it. And I didn't attach it right away because I have to put the fabric on, but I'd do that later. Now for my favorite part, the withering. For this part, I used the golden marker because no other colors show up on black foam. And after a little bit of marking and cutting, I decided to switch to Dremel because I thought it would be faster, but it ended up wasting more time than if I just cut it normally. You can see here as I struggle before switching back to the normal way. And I use my airbrush to blow off dust particles. And if you ever plan on doing this, you need to wear a respirator, otherwise it will kill your lungs. For this next right here, the Dremel actually did end up working though, for rounding the corners. Now for the next part, the jaw. It took me about 4 attempts to get this correct for some reason, but in the end, it was okay. Here I made the teeth, which are just pieces of foam that I airbrushed green and drew some cracks on. I didn't record the full process of making these, but here's a little bit of marking the cracks. And here I dropped my glue gun on my leg, and it did burn. Make the ears, which are pretty much just some foam I made into cylinders before cutting out the shape and then putting them on popsicle sticks. To get a good metallic look in the popsicle sticks, I use my airbrush with some metallic paint. Skip a little bit and boom, it's done. For the effects, I use hot glue to glue on fabric and then use a soldering iron to burn it on, giving it a withered looking effect. Also, I added some bounce to the ears, which I think looks pretty good. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with the final result, but I think it could have been better. Footage of what the eyes look like before I put them in the head. This took a very long time to make, but in the end they worked. Here's a little bit of where I made the body. I pretty much took some foam, shaped it around my body, and glued it together. Here's the finished body and shoulder pads before I put the fabric on them, just in case you wanted to see. Here I marked some withering on the body by spinning around a model in Sketchfab. It's not dead on, but it's pretty accurate. Next, I cut it out, and by this point the body is pretty much lost its shape, but it still looks okay. Here, I take a large sheet of fabric and roll the body on it and cut it out to get the right shape, and then I glue it on. Now, here's the final product. you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing, and if you have any suggestions for future videos or things you'd like to see me create, drop it in the comments, and I might just use your idea in a future video and even give you a shout out. But that's all for today's video. See you in the next one.